You're listening to Estrogen Dropouts.
Welcome back to Estrogen Dropouts. I'm one of your hosts, Elizabeth.
And I'm your other host, Erin. We are really excited about today's episode topic. This topic came about after several conversations that I've had recently with people in my life. And it also is something that I think applies to everyone. And it's the topic of closure. It's something that I think we've all, at some point in our life, whether romantically, friendship-wise, business-wise, or what have you, have had to contend with either wanting closure, not getting it, chasing closure from some person. So I think it's a really timely topic that applies to most people. Wouldn't you agree, Elizabeth?
Absolutely. And I mean, unresolved experiences or unresolved relationships, they take up so much brain power. And we sit there and ruminate, and we'll make up conversations that we have with this person where we're going to say our piece because we are so desperate to feel validated and heard and seen. It's like part of us can understand that a relationship can follow. Not part of us. I mean, we absolutely all can understand that relationships don't have to work out, and we're not always meant to be friends as partners, married, intimate relationships with people. But we do have this innate desire, our brains or our nervous system, to be heard, to be validated, have it be done in a kind way, and have it close out in this mutual, like, pretty package. And when that doesn't happen, we literally start to spiral, and it takes up so much brain space.
Yeah, it is. I think just as humans, we're used to having a beginning, a middle, and an end. And we want that nice package with a little bow on top presented to us. And you're right, it is. I have done this with people, about closure. I mean, I guess it is about closure, about maybe a circumstance, maybe not even the relationship, but a circumstance that we've had where I will have a conversation, entire conversation in my head. They're going to say this, and then I'm going to say this, and then they're going to say this, and then I'm going to say this. And I'm like, wait a minute. This was also some years ago. I'm a little bit more healed now, maybe. And I would have an entire, it's like, blah, 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 in your whole head. And you're like, okay, listen, batshit crazy lady. You are having an entire relationship in your brain. So stop, right? But I mean, it's our human nature. I think it's just one of the things that makes us human is we like to have things very tidy and neat, and not all things in life are tidy and neat. And so it makes us go crazy. I think that one of the things I was reading about is that there's two reasons that, like, social psychology says that we want closure. One is called the urgency tendency, which is the need to find closure as soon as possible. It's like, we're not a patient society. We're used to everything, especially now it's even worse. We have Amazon Prime, it's delivered the next day. If anything takes more than like 2 days to get to my house, I'm like, forget it. I need it now. We also, with social media, that immediate, we've talked about dopamine hit, we can just get information at our fingertips. So obviously the urgency tendency probably has become worse in us as we've become a more technological society. But then the other one is called the permanence tendency, which is the need to hold on to closure permanently or for as long as possible. So we want it final. We want it done today. Like, we don't want it lingering at all. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. And to have closure, though, what we really want is to be heard. We want our side of the story. We want to be perceived in the manner that we feel is fair. And we want our side heard. We want our pain acknowledged and validated, or our hurt feelings. And when you think about it and you step back, I mean, I have wanted this so many times with so many different scenarios. But that person, if someone wants to misunderstand you, they will. So their version of you kind of proving your point or proving that you're worthy of their attention or affection. If it doesn't line up with their narrative, which clearly it doesn't, because that's why the relationship has ended, you can't make someone see you in a way that will actually give you a peaceful closure. Them ghosting you or abruptly ending the relationship on their terms, and them being the sole decider of that to me is relationship. That's evidence enough that you don't need that person in your life. That is the closure. The closure, you give yourself that validation, like, whoa, I don't deserve this, and move on. It's hard. I know it's hard. I'm not saying, I know I'm saying it like, oh, just move on. No, it's hard when you haven't feel like you aren't heard and you're misunderstood. That is so hard. But when we also look at it like, is that a control issue then? And so maybe if you question yourself and you're like, am I trying to control the situation because I'm so uncomfortable with the idea that they don't see me the way I believe I see me, that we're going to like just hold on like so tight.
Yeah, it reminds me of that quote where it says, other people's opinion of me is none of my business,
Mm-hmm.
which in theory is just such a perfect saying, but it's so damn hard to live that out because we do. I mean, especially if you have more control issues, anyways, which I've always said, I like to be in control. It's been something that I've been working on for the last 18 years of letting go of control. But I think that's also what you were saying about, if somebody ends in a relationship abruptly, that's closure for you, because someone who has decided to distance themselves from you and doesn't give you the opportunity, for closure, the kind you want. It's like they're already distancing themselves from you. So why are they going to give you access to their innermost thoughts? They're like the deep inner workings of their soul, and like have this really emotional, heart to heart connection with you and answer all your questions. They are basically saying, I don't want you in my life. We're going to go our separate ways. And so they're not, it's like they're not going to give you what you want ever.
Yeah.
And I think then what happens is sometimes people, like you were saying, they spiral, and then it actually prevents someone from doing the work to move forward. Because they'll continue to have that. It's like a shoe hanging overhead of, it's unresolved, and there, it's like you're just like, I can't let it go. It's like a bad tooth almost. It's just always there, just rotting away inside of you, and you're just letting it have that power. And then also, people, if you were able to sit down with somebody who you wanted to get closure from, who's to say they're even going to be honest with you? I mean, they may just tell you what you want to hear, or they may not even, they're not going to necessarily validate you. You're probably not going to come away feeling any better than you did beforehand.
Yeah. So like so I've talked about this in the past. I had a friendship that ended that like devastated me. And so it's my best girlfriend for many years. And now she has a history of ghosting people and cutting people off really quickly and just deciding like this relationship's done. But I never thought that it would happen to me. And whenever it did happen to me in 2020, I was so hurt. And she literally unfriended me on social media. And that's how done she was with me. Like, because, we stay friends with people on social media that we don't necessarily like. So it was like, she literally unfriended me. And then I was texting her and I'm like, what is going on? She gave me no explanation. And then she's like, well, I saw that post. You give you a little bit quick backstory. She was almost 50, dating men that were in their late 20s. And I made a post about The Bachelor, being an older bachelor, and I was excited to see older people date. And anyway, she took that as I was not supportive of her dating younger people. And maybe she's right. Maybe I wasn't. I don't know. I mean, if she wants a random hookup, like I'm totally okay. Like I don't really care. It's none of my business. But I think that at that point, the closure for me, I never got it, but I didn't need it, because had she been willing to talk to me about it at that point, the damage was done. She had already unfriended me and decided in her mind that I was an unsupportive friend, even though we hadn't had like these deep conversations about who she was dating, or like I hadn't expressed that to her. It was just feeling she has a lot of self-judgment about that. And that's what came out in there. And 2020 was a shit show. Let's be honest. This was right in the height. This was like 3 weeks after we were all home on COVID and emotions were heightened. But at that point, even if she came back, like, we have other mutual friends and they knew what had happened. And they were like, this is nuts. She's going to calm down after this. It's just the emotional turmoil of everything that's happening in the world right now. And she's just lashing out. And I'm like, I don't want her. I don't want her back. If you're going to cut me off so quick and not express to me what was happening and like how you were feeling, I do not want you in my life. And so I do, though, look back at that friendship, or memories of it, and I miss it. And I can like honor the good times that we have. And I'm sad at the way that it ended. But I know anybody that would literally turn on me so fast, that's nobody I want in my life. And that's all the closure I need.
Absolutely. It's like a friendship of condition. It's so conditional because the post wasn't even about her. So she was triggered. And you probably didn't even, I mean, if you, subconsciously, were you like judging her? I mean, you're like, look, girl, you're getting a divorce or you're newly divorced. Like, do you? I mean, if you need, young 20 something year olds to make you feel good, have at it. Like, no judgment here. I mean, you're probably thinking it's
I
probably
was
not.
thinking she was acting out, but that was like my inner thoughts. Like I never said that. I was thinking, oh, midlife crisis a little bit, but go ahead, girl.
But all she had to do was ask you, like, hey, I saw your post and just wondering, like, if she really valued your friendship. She
Yeah.
said, I saw your post. And I have to be honest, it kind of triggered me because I feel like maybe it was like a judgment on me. And then you would say, no, it's not actually. Had nothing to do with you. Or you might say, oh gosh, no, like, but now
Yeah,
that
and I had to be like, I felt so misunderstood. Like I felt so because I responded to her. She was very cold with me. And when she told me, she goes, I saw that post you did on The Bachelor, and I know you're secretly judging me for dating younger men. So therefore our relation I can't be friends with you. And I was like, I literally said to her, there has to be more than that. Because I meant nothing. That was about me wanting to see older people date. Truly, this had nothing to do with you. And I just said, is there, I had to have done something else. Like I was like begging her kind of. I was like,
right, you're like, tell
over the
me what I
years,
did wrong.
right? Because I'm like, there's no way you're ending a 10-year friendship like that over a Bachelor Nation post. Like that's crazy. And so I was like, it has to be over the years. Did I do something over the years and she just said, no, it was that. And I was like,
Call bullshit on this. Well, that reminds me because there was a lot of serendipity going into this episode that, we had decided on the topic. And then I was like, it can be obviously romantic relationships are what we mostly think of for closure, right? Then we think of friendships, but even business relationships. And a while back, a friend had told me a story about he had been in business with his best friend for 15 years and like best friends. And then all of a sudden, I guess his business partner they were building this business up at the time when it had started. And he had just gone through a divorce and had remarried recently, his business partner. And then all of a sudden one day he just says like, hey, I want you to buy me out, and my friend's like, what do you mean? Because they were working other jobs while they got this business off the ground and it was getting to be very successful. And he's like, yeah, I just want you to buy me out. And so he's like, okay, well, let's come up with, they came up with a figure and then just completely cut him off friendship wise, like no explanation. And he was like asking, what happened? And he's like, it's nothing you did, which is not true. It is something that he did there, but would never give him any, amount of closure. He was saying how hard it was. It took him more than a year to actually stop having that be that,
yeah,
niggling little, like I said, rotten tooth in his mouth that he's like, oh my gosh, like your tongue just keeps going to it, going, ow, 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 because you just, I know rumination is just a human quality, right? But so it can happen in any relationship. I think personally, in your situation and in his situation, that there were things all along that people have small resentments. And it's like it was either jealousy or, just something that, either you said or he said, or like little tiny things along the way that when we don't like right off the bat, that's one of the things that makes being in a relationship challenging is that you always have to be communicating like, hey, when you did this, I mean, you don't always have to like nitpick every little thing, but if something is like staying with you that a friend did or a partner, whether it's a romantic or business, if it's lingering for a few days in your head, then
you have to talk about it.
yeah,
Yeah, I think you're right. That's why I said there has to be something else. There's no way like you would throw away a 10-year friendship like over this. Yeah, I mean, I feel like maybe she just didn't want to own that. Maybe I had done something. And right, like this guy, this business owner, you can say he absolutely did do something, or he was managing business in a way that didn't resonate with the other person. The person just didn't want the confrontation with it. But I do think people that abruptly leave your life, that's a huge blessing. So one of my goals has always been like a passion to host women's retreats. And I told her that one day and that stuck with me. And I didn't say anything, but I told her that. And she's like, who would come to that? And I was like, was so dismissive of me and so cold. Like, I felt like it was so rude, the manner of which she did it. That I was like, you don't really know me right now. Like, that's what I was thinking. Cause I was like, you would know, like, and she was like, well, what would you do? And I was like, I don't know. I'm like, maybe paint, maybe hike, like some self-growth a little bit, but just bring women together to have like a really cool experience. And she's like, who would pay for that? I don't know. The way she said it,
Yeah. So
it was very dismissive. It wasn't like she was genuinely asking, is there a market for this? It was like,
it wasn't a curiosity, it was a
yeah,
judgment.
it was a
It
judgment,
was
the way
just
she said
like,
it.
who would do that?
Yeah.
Like, well, lots of women would do that because we're going to plan on hosting our girlfriend.
We are. So y'all stay tuned. We're going to have
We
one.
don't know about it yet, but we're going to be talking about that soon. Who doesn't want to go and hang out with a bunch of cool girls? And that was one of my favorite things growing up, was going to slumber parties.
Yeah.
So I'm like, who doesn't want to stay up and do their toenails, or back in the day, all the fun things, tell ghost stories, play truth or dare, or whatever it is that we used to do. We used to play light as a feather, stiff as a board. Did you ever
Oh,
play?
yeah. We played that. We'll have to do that on our first girlfriend experience.
I don't think kids today even know about that.
I wonder if they do. I've got to ask my kids. I don't remember my kids doing that when they were little. And we used to go into the mirror in the bathroom.
Bloody Mary?
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, because you would stay up and you wouldn't get much sleep because you just terrify the whole group.
Yeah.
You're just terrified. You'd want to just sleep right close to each other. You'd all have sleeping bags out on the living room floor.
It's so fun.
Well, we're going to have beds at our retreat. So
yeah, we'll have beds. So when we announce ours, you guys be ready. It's going to have a limited amount of spots. So you'll be ready. Because our first one, we're going to keep it small. So
yes.
You'll have to act fast.
And hopefully, well, she doesn't follow you anymore, so she won't know that you're like,
see, I did, but I do remember, like, it burned when she said that. It really hurt my feelings, but I explained it to her, and I explained how, like, there's been many times in my life where I just needed connection and girlfriends and was struggling, or momming alone, or like mom struggles and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, I always wanted to do more retreats in my like these and whatever. So now I feel like there's another calling for that in women in midlife, whenever kids are leaving. And
plus it's so much easier in midlife. I know I started doing a girls getaway trip. But I started like in my early fees, and it was still hard because I had kids at home, and I always felt like I had to like make all these dishes ahead of time and just have everything lined up, because I had been the stay-at-home mom and Jeff was working all the time. And so I had to make it super easy for him. I wanted to make it super easy for him, for me to be able to get away. It wasn't that he demanded it, and he didn't say like, oh, you have to do all this, before you leave. But I wanted to make sure everybody was taken care of. And now, I can just like pack bag and be like, see ya.
Yeah, it's so nice.
Yeah. But, okay. Well, back to closure. So if we can't get closure from somebody else, how do you think that we can get closure from ourselves?
I think we remove our energy in by the way of unfriending or blocking, depending on, most of you guys are probably thinking this is probably mostly going to be about intimate relationships. And so in that case, you really don't need that person in your life anymore. Block or unfriend. And then I think that you do have to honor, and you have to let yourself be sad. I do think that, like, I think we can't shame ourselves like for thinking about it. And it's like, when I would think of her, I would cry because I really was like, I loved her so much. And then I also would judge myself because I'd be like, what is wrong with me that I have this girlfriend that I was so invested in that literally like ended our friendship so abruptly? Like, what is wrong with me? And then I stopped kind of trusting my judgment in women. And I feel like, don't do that. That's probably not good. I think it is good to self-reflect and go, okay, what did I miss? And so I did do that. I self-reflected and I said, okay, she did have a history of doing this. Her only close friends were out of state. I was her only friend in state. So I think if you can't get along with women in front of you, like, that might also be a
Red
sign. Yeah. And so I think that I saw some indicators of that when I reflected on it. And so now I just know, instead of putting a wall up, now I just know maybe to look for some of these things, because red flags are just lessons on how to move forward and do it better. And I'm actually grateful that she ended it so abruptly, and that didn't leave me hanging on to somebody that really didn't love me as much as I loved her. And so look at it like that way. Like, I'm so glad that she left. Like, it stung and hurt like a bitch. And I was, shocked and didn't understand. But, well, thank God I wasn't wasting my time and energy investing into a friendship where she was only apparently not,
half invested. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you're right about the feeling your feelings. And I've heard or read is give yourself like 10 minutes a day, instead of like saying like, I'm not going to think about it at all, or I'm not going to waste my time. It's like, if you're still sad about it, is okay, set a timer for 10 minutes. I'm going to allow myself to cry, or I'm going to allow myself to have that little ruminating story, or create the story I want in my head. Or if she says this, I'll say this, or if he says this, I'll say this. And then when the timer goes off, okay, just like let yourself just feel it, because it's just like anything else that we have. Like, if you think about, if you eat something and it goes in your body and it does its job, it's the same thing with our thoughts. Our thoughts are so powerful, and so our when we have these thoughts, if we don't let them work through our body, they stay trapped. And they end up showing up physically with physical ailments. All of a sudden, we've got like an ulcer, or we can't sleep at night, or we have some other aches or pains. And it's
So don't shove it and turn it off. Acknowledge it. That's what Erin's saying. Like, acknowledge it and like cry through it. Feel it in your body. Be sad. A lot of times we stuff it. Don't stuff it, because that's when it comes out as an ailment.
Right. It stays trapped in your body. And thank you for saying that more succinctly than I was. And so healing is an inside job. And that is one of the things I think, if it's in a romantic relationship, let's say with an ex partner that you still have children with, when you marry somebody, that's why it always trips me out. Side note, when people have a child with somebody and they'll make the commitment to have a child with them, but they won't make the commitment to be married. For some reason, that I just cannot understand that, because I'm like, having a child with somebody is so much more of a commitment than a marriage. Because when I was first married to Jeff, and before we had children, if we wanted to end our marriage, it would have been so easy, right? I would have never had to see him again. When you have a child with somebody, even if you're not married, you are basically tied to them for
the rest of your life,
for 18 years closely.
Yeah.
Then for the rest of your child's life, or your life, probably, hopefully, because hopefully your child outlives you. And so you're always going to have that person in your life, whether it's, co-parenting until they're 18. But I think a good way, that obviously if you have a divorce or, some kind of intimate breakdown in a relationship, one is, nowadays, a lot of states have like co-parenting classes that you have to go to, and you have to come up with a parenting plan. And so you have to be really diligent about, which is really hard, because I've had a lot of friends that have been divorced and had to co-parent. Like,
and what's the chance of both parents willing to take a class? Like, usually I feel like the woman might be, and I know, but a lot of times the guy's like, I'm not going to a class with you. Just give me my kid every other weekend.
Do you know that in the state of Georgia, they have to?
Oh, that's good.
To get a divorce.
Wow.
It's like holding a little carrot. Like, if you want a divorce, then you have to go through this parenting class. So I don't know about all states, but I know Georgia, and a lot of my friends that have been divorced, obviously it's been in Georgia. But so then you have to be okay with letting the co-parent do their thing when the kids are with them, without trying to have the control. So you have to give up control, right? Non-attachment. We talk about that in several other episodes, that it's like you have to, and I know with your kids, it's very hard. I'm not saying any of this is easy, but because if you continually try to exert your control, it's just going to create more drama with your ex-partner. But I think another good thing would be for people is to journal feelings. I'm not a big journaler. I'm more of a inside my head. Like, I kind of go through it in a more internal dialogue rather than writing it. But I think journaling, or even writing the person a letter and deciding whether or not you send it. It's like, you can say what you want, and maybe get closure by allowing yourself to say what you wanted to say, even, and then they have to listen because you're putting it on paper. One thing that I think is, we've talked about this in other episodes too, is we've talked about it in How to Make Friends, but is like finding a new hobby, something to like occupy your time.
Distract you.
Yeah. Give yourself that 10 minutes to like feel your feelings, to cry, moan and groan or whatever. And then find something new to do. You know, like,
Yeah. So they used to say, I mean, you know, this
yes,
is
way to get
crass.
somebody
Yeah.
is under somebody else.
To get, yeah. So the way to get over someone is to get under someone, which is terrible, but
No, I mean, in
it's
some ways,
true.
rebound.
Yeah,
You have to
I mean, it is true. It's like the distraction and the energy of something new, but you can take that and transform that into more healthy, you know, outlets, like start an art class, take a new lesson, start cooking, get a walking group with your girlfriends. If it's a friendship that broke down, make new friends, put yourself out there right away, feel your feelings, but then definitely you've got to move, you've got to get that energy, there's got to be movement so that that energy and that pain doesn't get stagnant and sit there.
Yeah, being flexible, pivoting, just, you know, that's just part of our human experience. We always, you know, when we get attached to how things are supposed to be is when we really start to suffer. And we have such a hard time, instead of just like accepting things as they are. I mean, things don't always work out how we want them to, but I am such a firm believer that this happened with you with the friendship ending, is the universe works, I think, for your good. Like, when you're putting good things out in the universe, God, you know, our creator, whatever you want to, you know, believe in, is always looking to, you know, have your back and like just give you all the things that are the best thing for you, even if you don't recognize it at the time. So for you, her ending that friendship, it probably saved you much more heartache down the line, because you would have invested, you might not have ever ended the friendship. You would have invested so much more time. I hope they can't hear my lawn, guys. I'm
I
like,
know. I hope that it'll buzz it or mute it out.
if you're listening and you hear it, I'm sorry. I did not expect the lawn people to be here.
You know, my daughters are both like amazing at when a relationship, whether it be a friendship or if they're dating someone, and if they get broken up with or if their friendship ends, walking away. And they process it on their own, but they don't text, they don't call, they block immediately on all platforms. And they're like, I'm done. And they grieve, they hurt, but they aren't. When I think back to when I was young, it was like Chris and I broke up a few times whenever we got together, and it was like we didn't have any texting, but I was always calling. I'd break up with him one day and then call him the next day. I was like, I was
Well, good
young.
thing, because I mean, otherwise you wouldn't have wanted to block him, because you're like, dang, you would have
Yeah.
missed out on, like, you know, the love of your life. But
Yeah, but my girls are literally, they are totally like savage. They're like, no, I mean, like right now, Hannah's going through a heartbreak and she's like, no, he broke up with me. I'm done. You know, she's like, I'm so sad. She's very sad.
right.
But she's like, if I don't want someone that doesn't want me. And I said, did you sit there and have a full conversation? And she's like, nope. She goes, the fact that he doesn't want me is the only information I need. Yeah. So because I was like, did you ask questions? Did you ask why he was in here? Did you ask? And she's like, no. She said, the fact that he was telling me he didn't want me was all I needed to know. The rest of it is not my business. And I was like, okay, girl.
You raised some very strong, very emotionally savvy, and, you know, intelligent women.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm like, I don't know how. I'm like, I'm always shocked by
No,
it.
you're one of the strongest women I know. I mean,
But
it's
I'm
not a
always like,
surprise to me at all.
I'm
But
like,
it's,
you don't ask questions? And she's like, it's none of my business. She's like, I'm so hurt. He told me like that we were going to be forever and he's a liar. So no, I'm done. Okay.
good
Okay.
for her. I mean,
I mean, she's not like moving on, but she's just like, she closed that door.
right, right. She's not getting under somebody
Right.
else.
So and I'm like, are you going to text him or something? Or have you talked to him? She's like, why would I text him? He broke up with me. I'm like, good. I mean, that's the way it should be. But I guess I just feel like if I were her, I'd be wanting closure. So I'd be like having it hard, be like, well, what did you mean by, you know, like, what did you
Yes.
mean by this? Like, I could see myself doing that. And she's like, no, I have all I need to know.
Yeah, that's great, because that's a really rare thing, I think, that most people aren't able to do.
Yeah.
You
I mean,
know,
I do think she does. She is ruminating of it,
Of
but she
course.
doesn't want to talk to him about it. Where I think most people want to go back to the person that hurt them and be like, let's have this talk, because they want to have their feelings validated. They want to hear that person say, I know I hurt you, I'm sorry. But yeah,
That's
don't
great.
do that. So if somebody's broke up with you or someone says, don't go back and try to get them. The person that hurt you cannot heal you.
That's the best quote we have. Right. Exactly. Only you can heal yourself, because it is an inside job and you have to do the work that on your own to heal.
Yeah. And your heart is not safe with someone that would, if you're struggling right now thinking you need closure, that means that person ended something with you abruptly, and your heart is not safe with them. So do not go back to that person.
What So what prompted me to pick closure for our topic is one of my girlfriends. She had been seeing someone, friends with benefits kind of situation from the very beginning, very clear, no strings attached, don't want a relationship. She's like, oh, yes, that's fine. I don't want one either. And so it was just a physical relationship. And then all of a sudden she started catching feelings, and, he reminded several times, like, it's no strings attached. And then he even made the comment to her, like, you're in a one-sided relationship. And then she had, like, I guess, messaged him, or I can't remember if it was in person or whatever. And he was kind of rude. And she was just like, what? And then she just was like, okay, fine, and walked away. But then for months, it's just like, I just want to talk to him. I just want to do this. I'm like, why? What purpose is it going to serve? How is this going to help you? Because I'm like, all along he told you, like,
Yeah.
he's
He's going to
attached.
think she's nuts.
Yeah.
Like,
So I'm like, you already have the information. You've already been given closure. You just
yeah.
have to accept it and just move on. So
I feel like the way she's handling this is very standard
yeah.
for like most women, I think, that are
Yeah.
like that. And we can't expect. Yeah, this is why I say being gay is not a choice, because men and women are wired. I mean, being gay, yeah, it's definitely not a choice, because men and women are wired differently. If I could
Mhm.
be gay, I would. Men are dumb. Men, I don't believe that women can have casual sex
No, I don't think so either.
without
They,
getting some level of attachment and stuff, where men literally can go whore themselves out and like they think of nothing, never think of that person ever again.
they're like,
Um,
what am I having for dinner?
yeah, they do not care.
Exactly. They're like, they don't even think about her again. I know. No, that's why I think, a lot of my friends that are women that are gay say it's because they can be physically attracted to men, but they're not emotionally connected to men. All right. Do you have anything else to say about closure? Any last advice for our listeners who might be struggling with closure?
Gosh, no. I mean, nothing that I don't think that we've already said. I think you have to honor yourself, give yourself the grace to feel your feelings, but also move through them with new activities and distance yourself from that person, and distance yourself emotionally as well.
Well, well, as if I wasn't enough to make me believe that this topic was pertinent for today, I was scrolling Instagram, and a lady who I follow who writes about relationships. She's a therapist, but I've never watched her story, and I watched it today. And one of her slides had the word closure, and it's a noun, and it says not about answers, but about making peace with questions that will never be solved. And so I think that's just, make peace with questions that will never be solved or answered. Sometimes just letting yourself just be okay with the unknown.
Yeah. And knowing,
You're
yeah, we
worthy.
can't control the outcome. And control is a big piece of this. It's like we want to control how people see us, how people feel about us, we just have to let it go.
Yeah. We got to be like Elsa, let it go. So, yeah, make sure that you have hit the follow button so that you can get notified each week when we release a new episode, because you don't want to miss one.
And be sure to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and you can watch the full version of this podcast on YouTube.
So, we'll see you next week.
Bye.
This has been a production of Estrogen Dropouts, LLC.